1. To start off, let me say that I had a rather sheltered childhood. My dad was in the military, so my family lived on an army base, which is sort of like an ultra-gated community. Anyone coming in through the gates had to show ID, and it was pretty much insulated from the rest of the city that surrounded it. Because of this, I had a lot of freedom to explore and spend time outside unsupervised. That's why I find it especially strange that I had this encounter on a summer's day in my pre-adolescence about 12 years ago. On the base that I lived in, there was a public pool where we would go most days during the summer. It was pretty large, and its main attraction were the 3 different slides that it had. I had just passed the swim test that was required in order to ride the largest slide, so I was extra eager to go to the pool that day. Our family friends lived down the street, and they had several children. 2 of the girls were close to my age, and they had an older brother who was going to drive us all to the pool that day. They literally lived about 9 houses down the road, so I donned my one-piece bathing suit and flip-flops, wrapped a towel around my waist, and grabbed my pool bag under my arm so I could head over and start the day. One important detail is that I wore glasses at the time. I got them when I was around 9, and my vision wasn't too terrible back then, though it's gotten a lot worse in the years since. I was too young to have contacts at the time, so I would just leave my glasses at home so that I wouldn't lose them at the pool. This had happened once before to me. I began my walk to my friend's house. As I walked along the sidewalk, the row of houses was on my right, the street was to my left, and there was a parade field on the side of the road. Since this was a main road, nobody was allowed to park on the street in front of the houses, and everyone would instead park on the service road behind them. This is why I noticed that a car passed me and parked right in front of my friend's house. I figured my friend's brother must have invited someone to the pool with us. I noticed someone get out of the car, and to my surprise, they didn't walk to my friend's house. They walked up the sidewalk towards me. As the person drew closer, I saw that it was a guy. That's really all I could see. It seemed to be an average-height, somewhat skinny dude. Again, I kept thinking that it was my neighbor's friend, and he was going to ask me if he had the right house or something. He finally approached me, and all I remember being able to see about him was that he seemed relatively young and had brown hair. Honestly, at this point, I really wasn't thinking too much of it. He said, "Hey, are you going to the pool?" I remember kind of thinking, duh, since I was wearing my swimsuit and a towel, but I replied with a yes. "Oh, cool. Is it that big one with the curly slide?" he asked. I replied that it was. There was another pool on the base that was smaller and had no slides, so I figured he was just trying to determine which one I was going to. "Really? I'm going there too," he said. "I can give you a ride if you want." His tone was friendly enough, but I instantly felt adrenaline surge through my body. I may have been a sheltered child, but this was the exact scenario that I had seen in countless movies and PSAs, and I instantly felt panicked. Some stranger asking me to get in their car with him was not something that I was dumb enough to accept, not after years of stranger danger conditioning. No thanks," I answered him. I remember straining to look at him to see some defining characteristic that I could tell my mom about later, but I was not about to get closer to him to get a better look. All I could make out was brown hair, and he seemed youngish. "Okay, well, would you be able to give me directions there then? If you could come into my car, I have a map and you can show me the way," he said nonchalantly. My panic instantly rose when he mentioned coming to his car, and it struck me as super strange that he apparently knew the pool I was talking about, offered to drive me there, but then suddenly claimed he didn't know where I was. All I could think about was getting away from him, so I just stammered, "No, I'm good. I'm riding with my friends, so I'll just go with them." He just said okay and walked back to his car. I had to walk the same direction as him, but I cut diagonally through all my neighbor's yards so that I wouldn't risk walking near his car. He reached his car and got inside, but he did not drive away. I remember wishing so badly that I could see the license plate, but that was way too far for my eyes to make out. As I walked to my friend's door, I knocked frantically, and kept looking behind me to see that car was still there. They answered in about 30 seconds, and as soon as they opened the door, he drove off. My friend's mom was the one who answered, and she could tell something was wrong. and I think that they ended up calling the local cops, but nothing ever came of it. To this day, the entire encounter really confuses me. The guy really didn't seem threatening, and when I told people that he seemed to be young, in his early 20s maybe, everyone kind of brushed it off. But I just can't imagine anyone having good reasons for inviting an unknown 11-year-old girl into their car. Either your intentions are bad, or you're so incredibly stupid that you don't realize how creepy you are. I guess I'll never know what was up with that guy, but I'll happily never meet him again. 2. This happened to me a few years ago. I was doing my master's and working in my dream school in city. Life was great, and I woke up ready to conquer the day. Yes, I was one of those people. However, this incident sort of took it out of me, and I was low-key ready to get out. Throughout my master's, I was active on many dating apps, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, OkCupid. I would from time to time meet up with people and have a great time. This is one such story. One night, my 3rd semester, I was hanging out with some friends and swiping left and right on Tinder. I matched with Tracy, who identified as she, her. We matched an hour later and started talking. She was great to talk to. Very easy and had a great sarcastic sense of humor. We clicked instantly. The only thing that felt off was she never really spoke about her personal life, as in, every time we would talk about jobs, families, pets, she would never really answer. Or it would be very general, like, for work she said, "I sometimes work at a debt collector's office." When I asked how was that, she said, "I don't really know." I wrote it off as her not sharing to someone who could just be a hookup. Apart from joking, most of our chats were sexual in nature. I told her I wasn't looking for anything serious and just wanted to have fun from time to time. She shared the same feeling, and talked about how everything was so serious and she too was just wanting to have some fun. We both kept talking almost all week, and every day she would ask me to come over. This started from the night we matched. Within 2 hours of us talking, she asked me to come over. I was very busy that week, so I told her it wouldn't be possible. But she would without fail invite me over every night. She was also persistent. It would go on for around 20 to 30 minutes, her asking me to come over, giving me ideas on how I can manage my work, and of course listing all the perks I would get. However, I just couldn't find the time. During our conversations, I learned she primarily survived on her trust fund. Her parents were filthy rich. They had bought her a house where she lived alone. Eventually, at the end of our first week on Tinder, I asked Tracy to hang out. She was beyond ecstatic, but it soon turned into a sort of an argument. I was inviting her to my friend's party and bars afterwards, but she stayed put in the idea of me coming to her. We argued for about a solid hour, me trying to keep it fun and silly, but I could tell she was getting annoyed. At one point, she didn't text me back, and without thinking much, I went ahead to the party. A couple hours later, she texted me asking for my friend's address. I sent it to her, and an hour later she arrived. We met, and she was so much fun. She wasn't irritated anymore, and I was glad. We hung out with my friend, she was super funny, and all of them liked having her there. As my friends headed to the bars, I asked her to come back to my apartment. She agreed, and we left. We both talked, and then had a lot of fun. During our conversations, we had talked about kinks, and she said yes to everything, justifying it by her adventurous attitude. Now that I think about it, maybe it was a red flag. That night was no different. She didn't say no or even hesitate at anything we did. I told her it was okay to stay over if she wanted, but she denied and left around 2 or 3 a.m. There was one thing that happened a lot that night. I wasn't thinking with my brain, so I didn't catch it beforehand, but from the moment we met, she kept pestering me on how I should have come to hers. Every chance she got, she commented that her place would have been a better idea. Even at the end, I remember her saying something like she wouldn't have to leave if it was her home, and I could have made her breakfast in the morning. She basically said it to the point where I got annoyed and promised her that next time I would be at her place. We didn't speak much after that night. The conversation kind of died because of her general answers. I didn't mind much. We did, however, talk enough to keep in touch, and every other day I would get asked to come over. I had some time off that following Wednesday, so I agreed. I asked her for her location, and she sent it to me. It was around 50 minutes away, outside the city. I asked her if we could meet when she was in the city, but her mood changed and cashed in the promise I made her last time we met. I felt bad, so I said yes, and she got super happy. I made the drive around 9 p.m., and nearing her house I realized how far I had actually come from the city, how tucked away it was. Now I see things clearly. But back then it was just a hint of doubt, and then soon vanished as I saw Tracy at the door dressed in a lingerie set. She pulled me inside and we immediately got to it. After a few minutes she stopped and asked me to go to her bedroom and wait. It was one on the first floor. She stayed on the main floor to go get something. And the entire time I was alone, I kept thinking this couldn't be a trust fund sponsored house. It was big, but it was dirty and not maintained. Most of the furniture was old and ragged, except for a few newish things here and there. Her bedroom was very dimly lit and blackout curtains were drawn. I spread them apart and let some light in. It was an almost empty room. Her bed frame seemed cheap and not sturdy. Her clothes were kept in a cabinet, one of those glass cabinets used for displaying china, crockery, awards, etc. She did have a vinyl player and a lot of records on the ground next to it. My gut was twisting and turning inside me just by walking around her room. A sort of self-help system went off, and I exited the room towards the stairs of the house. I was being quiet because I wanted to leave without her knowing. As I got close to the staircase, I heard her talking. And then I heard another person talking. And then I heard another person talking. I could hear 3 voices rapidly talking back and forth in a light hush. I still remember how it felt in that moment. My ears got hot and my whole body tensed up. I walked to a window nearby, contemplating if I would break anything by jumping out. It wasn't feasible, so I pumped myself up, I'm 6 foot and 240 pounds, and began walking down the stairs as lightly as I could. I got halfway down and carefully listened. Their voices were coming from the opposite side of the main door. I got my car key out swiftly and rested my thumb on the unlock button. Once I mustered up the courage, which felt like a lifetime. I ran off the stairs and straight to the door. There were 3 locks on it, those twisting ones. As I was unlocking, I could hear Tracy calling me, and I felt more than one person shuffling towards me. I swung open the door and ran out to my car. I sat in and locked the doors and she said, "They're just my parents." She got to my car and rested her hand on the side mirror, still in her lingerie. She kept calling out my name. I could faintly see 2 people who didn't come out, but were standing still at the door, a man and a woman. Without thinking twice, I put the car in reverse and flew out of there. I drove back in a frenzy. The thing that messes with me the most, sent chills down my spine even today, is the couple of words I could make out from their conversation. Someone said, "Well, do it your way then." 3. We've been living in this unit since April of 2020. It is managed by the management company I work for, so once I saw the listing getting ready to be posted, I jumped on it, and my partner and I moved in here. It's a duplex, technically, but is essentially like a house with a studio attached. It's a weird setup. Like I said, we're basically a single-level house. We're on a corner, so we face one way, and the studio faces the other. We share 2 to 3 of the studio's walls with them. In our living areas, we also have a door that connects on each side, locked by a deadbolt. If we wanted, we could open it and share our spaces. Could the attics connect if our living rooms used to? I hate the dark and I hate being home alone. I always have. But here it sometimes feels like I have a reason to worry, or that I am being watched. Our dog is very aware of every little noise, and while it's usually a dog or someone talking outside, I feel that her annoying whiffs and barks might mean something more. My partner and I have heard several random noises that feel like someone is outside of our home and hitting the walls. Usually one bang or spaced out ones, like accidents. It's not uncommon for homeless people to rummage in our garbages, so that's what we have been assuming. Sometimes, though, they feel a little too close, like they're up and over from us in the attic. We've never been up there, as we have a spare bedroom area and a small loft in the garage. To be honest, I'm not sure where the attic door is, although I think there is an opening in our master closet. At least one possible opening so far. I haven't looked. It's not like a door, but more like a ceiling that's elevated. Like a raised ceiling in a living room, but very small. There's also a space that I think goes under the house as well. Haven't been in there either. This closet has a motion light that turns on every 30 seconds or so. So if you're in there, you have to move again to get it on. It can't be on continuously. My partner has gone to the garage through the night to smoke marijuana, so it's very quick. Several times to find me asleep with our dog and that light on. It's not sensitive to bugs. We have a hard time getting it on sometimes. We have also woken up early and quietly laid in bed before to hear it switch on out of nowhere. Obviously, there wasn't something in the closet, but what about above, near the wires? Along with the noises, we noticed things being misplaced or missing. Small things. Nothing that we would assume was the other person misplacing, food included. But we don't run out of it usually. More like it's being picked off little by little, not literally, but say I have a pack of 10 tortillas. Next week I might have 8. Next I might have 7, and I likely haven't ate any myself. It could be my partner, but doubtful, as we usually have our own snacks or make meals with and for each other. Our appliances, like a coffee pot, have been left on several times. We're very particular about turning them off when we leave. Sometimes our washer is turned off mid-cycle as well. Remember my sensitive, barky dog? We leave a radio on for her while she's locked in her kennel during the day to help. And just to clarify, because I know someone will say something, she prefers it as kind of like her comfort place. Some dogs do. It has been turned off several times, as in obviously switched from on to off, and she couldn't do it herself. Sometimes alarms are set and make it turn on, but we don't use it for that purpose. We are very routine and check on her 3 times a day around the same times. She has always been so happy to see us when we get home, and usually sounds like a little hyena for 20 minutes after we get there. But it seems to be getting worse. She's very sweet and can be timid. So if someone was mean to her when we weren't around, she wouldn't defend herself. We had found piled up fur outside the front door of her kennel recently, like it was pulled out or brushed and pulled from the brush. Today, my last straw was finding urine in our toilet in our master bedroom. Super dark, stinky, nasty urine. It definitely wasn't me. I'm hydrated for one, and there was no toilet paper in the bowl. And my partner only urinates in it at night, and is also hydrated, and has 0 problems flushing. He also lifts his seat. He mostly uses the other bathroom. I asked him just to be safe. Wasn't him, wasn't me, so who? I was the last one here this morning, and the only one to use it today. He jokes often about the man in the attic, but what if it's real? What if they're getting more and more ballsy? My partner says he'll look this weekend, but I'm scared for him to. I ordered a camera. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 538. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Okay, this goes up Wednesday, doesn't it? It does. Oh, jeebus, it's Christmas next week. That one snuck up on us. That means I'll need to try and get organized between the end of this week and early next week. I mean, taking care of presents is easy enough. It's just money for my niece and nephew. That should be fine. We'll need to think about dinner, though. I usually like to make a nice dinner on Christmas Day. Don't bother with turkey anymore. I usually just get a good bit of steak. Do that with like mash and roast veg. Maybe some sweet corn, baby carrots, or I could have broccoli. Well, maybe broccoli. We'll see. And I'll put gravy over the top of that. We'll see. Oh, and I'll need to think about a pudding. That's the most important part, obviously. Well, that being said, I've got a bit of a habit of snacking while I'm making dinner. So when I get dinner, I do eat it, but I'm so full afterwards, I'm just not in the mood for the pudding. So the pudding often comes the following day for me. Not sure what I'm getting yet, though. I usually get a jam roly-poly, and I'll have custard with that, but I might get chocolate cake or something this year, or maybe like a salted caramel fudge cake. That might be nice if I could find one. We'll see what I can find. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.